Welcome to The Curve Weekly, the podcast that keeps you up to date with all of the money, business and stock market tea.
Brought to you by the Curve's research team. It's the latest insights on what's happening in the stock market, companies, other money-related news so that you can stay educated and ahead of the curve.
You can thank us later for sounding smarter than those finance bros at your next dinner party.
So most people who have been listening to this podcast for a while will have heard us talk about the world's biggest investing club.
We've been harping on about it.
Don't make it like it's a bad thing.
No, it's great.
We're allowed to harp on about the world's.
Yeah, because it's the world's biggest.
Yeah, I mean, it's not yet, but that is the plan.
Aspirations.
Yeah. So we have had founding members in there for the last couple of months.
Yeah, having a look around, educating themselves, talking to each other. It's been great.
Yeah, and giving us a lot of feedback.
Yes.
So we've been able to reiterate, iterate, make changes. It's really looking quite slick and very exciting. And we're not in a position for everyone to join. The experience right now is for an intermediate investor, so someone who understands the basics.
Yeah.
So if you understand the fundamentals of like risk and return and dollar cost averaging, maybe you invest already, then there's 100 spots that we're opening up for you to join. This is happening in a couple of days. We're going to put a little link in the podcast show notes. You can join like a wait list to make sure that you do get notified first because these will go really quickly.
Just like tickets to Glastonbury or Coachella. They're going to sell out like hotcakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you would like to be on that list, follow the link in the show notes. Otherwise, just keep an eye on your emails over the next couple of days. If you get a little notification from us, just quickly hop on and you'll get access to the investing club, which is really exciting. So,
and you can go in and have a look around. You don't have to pay from the get-go. There's a trial period where you can go and have a look around, see if it's for you. So definitely go and check it out. We've worked so hard on it. I'm super stoked. It looks great.
Yeah, so there's some really cool stuff in there.
If I say so myself. I feel like I'm nervous. I've never been nervous for a podcast.
I think it's because you cried on the podcast in the one we just released.
It was, I remember our producer sending us highlights and I watched it and I was like, Sophie's like, have you ever cried on our social media yet? And she's like, nope. I was like, cool, well, I'm about to, but no, it was.
So just for context, if you haven't listened to Raising the Curve from last week.
Literally the previous one.
Yeah.
In Spotify, 137.
Oh, I love me. She's like, I'm well aware. I cried in it. But we did it on financial burnout, and it was so interesting because we actually recorded this episode a while ago, and we kind of went into it not realizing what was going to come out of it.
And we're kind of joking about a few things and like having a laugh.
This sounds like Vic.
And then afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I went through financial burnout. But honestly, the most incredible messages I've received overnight from friends, our investors, like just, it's been quite amazing. And also concerning how many people have been through a similar situation.
Or are still going
through it.
Yeah. I think it's a really good reminder. One of the things that you spoke about in the episode in terms of what kind of advice you would give someone that's going through something similar is to reach out to people around you for 100%. Help, not necessarily financial, but some kind of help. And it makes me think if this was 6 months ago and these people were coming out of the woodworks with the support that you've received in the last 24 hours, how much that would have helped.
100%.
And it's almost just like in real time, a reminder that you don't need to struggle with these things alone. Like you have communities around you, even if you don't feel like you do. But if you want to go back and listen, it was a really good episode, and thanks for being. I know that probably felt quite vulnerable, so thanks for that. I think that thanks for that, like so casual.
Thanks for that.
Thanks
now
for that.
On to the next thing. Yeah. But yeah, speaking of that and having like people around you to support you and everything, I think it kind of comes back to your birthday episode a bit.
I actually haven't listened to that since we released it. I don't know why. I think I felt like in an emotionally vulnerable state.
Yeah, and I think it's just a good reminder that like people around you love you so much, and it's in those times that you like forget that that's when you need it the most. Anyway, this is kind of a long-winded segue. You're like, where are we going?
I know, I'm a bit alarmed because in our notes it says play voice note from DMs. I'm like, who's it from?
So it's not from our DMs.
Oh, God.
But I had to put it in there to throw you off guard a bit. This is very delayed. It was a voice note that I tried to get for your birthday, and unfortunately it came back, but it went to my junk. And I was so gutted. And so it's a bit of a delayed voice note, but here we go.
Oh my God.
Happy birthday, Sophie. This is Elizabeth Day. I'd be offended if you didn't recognise my voice because we are fellow podcasters. And I know I was lucky enough to meet you recently at the podcast show. And I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing and keep being you, because you are a wonder and a gift to the world. And I'm so happy that I got to send you this message via the medium of your dear friend and co-host. Happy birthday. I'm someone who loves to celebrate her birthday. And my top tip for you is to make it last at least a month. Just eke it out. Just make everyone keep celebrating you because you deserve it.
Can you send me that so I can have it on my phone? I need to play that in the morning, every morning. God, am I a creep? I'm like, I just think she's so awesome.
Yeah, no, and I sent her the little snippet that we did when you were like, oh, how good would it be to get on the podcast?
Oh, did you?
Anyway, and then she came back and was like, yeah, here's a voice note, and it went to my junk, and I was so gutted when I found it. I was like, no.
Oh my God, that's quite amazing.
Yeah. You're friends.
Thanks.
You're friends now.
Okay, do you know what's funny is I had a dream last night, but I was invited to speak at an event. It was about, I thought we were talking about Gossip Girl, which is something I watch all the time, so embarrassing. Anyway, I turned up to this event really nervous because I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm going to be speaking for 10 minutes at Elizabeth Day. And then I got there and they're like, no, we're not talking about Gossip Girl. We're talking about some random book, and I'd got the details wrong. Oh. And so I was standing there fumbling back, like no idea what I was talking about. And when I woke up this morning, I was like, even though I was having a mare, that was a great dream. That was a bit of a random side note, but that's so cool.
Yeah, you guys are mates now.
Do you think she actually remembered who I was, or do you think she was being polite?
Well, I didn't mention.
Did you not mention
So
did you promise you didn't?
I promise. I mean, I sent her the clip. I can't remember what was on it. Maybe you said I met her at the podcast show.
Oh.
Maybe, but yeah.
Wow,
but
that's
her beautiful voice as well. I was like, oh.
Her book, by the way, if anyone wants a good read, it's called How to Fail. It's the one you gave me for my birthday. It's kind of the idea of what you learn from things not going right. And I think in the context of the financial burnout mention and everything, I'm really like, gosh, it's so nice to not hear someone that's just like flapping around with all their successes and actually being honest about the shit that goes wrong. What a treat. Thanks.
What a treat. So I feel like we've just gone from a really happy moment to now I'm just going to crush your dreams a bit. Yeah, sorry. So BP, I know how much...
My favourite company.
Yeah. I know how much you love the planet, and so this one's going to kick you while you're down. No, sorry. This one's going to stab you, put salt in the wound.
Stab you? Good God, get some better sayings.
Hit you where it hurts.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So they have dropped their targets, so they've stepped away from them in terms of their oil and gas production targets by 2030. So back in 2020, they put out a really ambitious target to cut oil and gas production by 40%.
Amazing.
By 2030. And everyone was like, whoa, that's ambitious for BP, one of the biggest oil and gas producers in the world. Last year, they were like, we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to cut it to a 25% cut. So they've gone from 40% to 25%. Now, this year, they've gone, actually, we're going to be raising it.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean raising it?
So they were trying to reduce their...
So they're not even going to reduce it at all? It's actually increasing?
It's actually increasing, yeah. Yeah, it's actually quite shocking. And
what have they said about it though? Like what's the...
So the argument is that renewable energy projects are too expensive. So they've been investing, the cost of investing in these projects, which will help them, because they've still got to produce a certain number, just where they get that production from, whether it's, your traditional means or your
You're talking about energy.
Energy, yeah. So, but the cost of investing in renewable energy projects is too high. So they're like, you know what, we're just going to have to keep producing.
Sorry, just to clarify, one of the wealthiest, biggest, enormous companies that definitely have the money, they're saying, we need the same amount of energy and, it's a bit more expensive to do the renewables, so we're actually not. Is that that's genuinely their response?
Yeah. So they've had to pause those projects and accelerate the traditional oil and gas production project to keep up with demand.
What do you think our friend Greta Thunberg is saying about this? Is there people in outrage? Like what's happening on socials? What have investors' reactions been?
Yeah, investors' reactions are frustrated, but also it's interesting with BP because people that don't invest in it because of that, because they produce oil and gas, there's not much they can do. You can protest and all of that, but I think the thing with this is the dichotomy between having shareholders that want profitability and doing what's good for the planet and all of that.
I just think it
I'm not trying to create excuses. I'm just,
No. It's more
it's
just
this whole push and pull of like, okay, well, do we sacrifice profitability? And this is the decision that the board has made, is that it's going to cost us too much to invest in these renewable energy projects. It's going to cost us profitability, and investors want profitability and shareholders want that. So we have to do that option. I don't know. It is the fact that it's one of the largest oil and gas producers.
It'd just be so cool if they
stood up
and they said profits will be dropping. We're taking this approach. I think they would see an uprising in investors, people wanting to support the change that they're genuinely trying to make, rather than, or did they not see that when they announced the cuts? Like when they said, in 2020, we're planning on reducing our gas production by 40%. I wonder what happened to their share price, because you often speak about there's such a push and pull between ESG investors, so ethical investing, because you can either choose to support companies that are trying to change, knowing they're doing good, or you just go straight for a company that's not actually having a detrimental impact. In this case, supporting BP in 2020 would have been great because you're supporting a company that's trying to say, we want to do different.
Yeah.
But then for the 4 or 5 years later, for them to actually be like, kidding.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you much hope in investing in companies with the hope they're going to change, is what I mean.
And I think this is with ESG investing, you're right. There's kind of two angles. You could invest in BP and be like, I am going to be a really vocal, engaged investor and tell them what I think and rally support from other investors and really make a song and dance about their stupid changes. Or you could be like, you know what, I'm just not going to invest in it. And if you get enough of those people, then their share price falls and falls and falls.
Do you think we do something?
There's two ways to go about being voting with your wallet. It's by not investing, or it's investing and being active. And this is what fund managers do as well. Some are like, you know what, we're just not going to invest in any oil and gas companies. So no Shell, no BP. And then others are like, no, we think we can have a better outcome, a better impact if we get in there, buy stock in these companies and actually bring about change. So
I would love to bring this to the investing club. I think it would be really interesting to hear people who have invested in BP, who haven't, and also just because there will be so many different opinions on it. But I can't imagine that there's that many people that are so desperate for returns that it's at the sacrifice of.
Yeah. I mean, it's down 21% in the last 12 months. So it looks like people are actively getting fed up with BP and pulling their money out.
I wonder if, you know how Hello Kitty or Pretty Kitty, or what's that guy that always like
Roaring Kitty.
So he does all these like memes where he like meme stocks.
Yeah.
And he'll get people to buy or sell. Or I wonder if we just can see if the Curve community can be a bit like, I don't know what we could do. Maybe it's just like a social post and everyone shares it or something. But it's just
everyone tags the BP CEO.
Yeah, and just be like, is there an emoji that's the middle finger?
Yeah.
Let's do
I
that.
use it all the time.
Oh God, that's terrible. Hate that.
But also with this one as well is like, I still jump in taxis and Ubers that use petrol. I find it really hard to sit here on my high horse and say I'm not going to invest in BP, yet I consume their products day in, day out.
I think there's a real element of, if you're getting a private jet every 2 weeks, or you're unnecessarily traveling, or you get in a car when you're down the road by 2, I think there's the amount of guilt that we can take on is enormous. That you, at some stage, the change has to be systemic. It has to happen from big companies. You can't sit there feeling like, yes, we can do our bit, whether it be going vegan, using a bike when you can, all those things. You know, there's lots we can do that is voting with your behavior, but to feel like you're the one that needs to feel incredibly guilty when there's an enormous billion-dollar company that's not even making a tiny change in the amount. I don't know. I think it's a really funny one.
I agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate. And it's like, okay, if they were like, you know what, we are going to focus on purely renewable energy, then that means increased costs for them. They're not going to cut their profit. They're going to just pass it on to people like you and me, and we're going to have to end up paying more.
I'd rather that. I would honestly rather.
But if I think we could, there is a whole population out there that is already struggling, to pay the bills and I don't know.
God, it's
sticky. It's a sticky one, but just throw it out to you. What do you think?
Yeah. God, okay.
Just diffuse But there's also concerns now that Shell is going to come out and kind of say the same thing, because it's like, oh, well, BP, you know, they've done it in terms of they've kind of ripped the Band-Aid off and everyone's disappointed in them. So now we can kind of fly under the radar and do it too and not get as much heat. So sorry, planet. That's all I can say.
No. Okay, let's move on to a different type of news.
Yeah, trying to find something more positive. No, Google. You know that tiny company?
G-O-O.
No. Do you know what a Google is?
No.
It's like a zillion, trillion, billion, fillion. Like a Google is the most like numbers or things you can ever get. Like a Google. Like I have a Google dollars is like.
Really?
Yeah.
How have you never told me that before? That's such a good fun fact.
So that's why like let's Google, and it's like searching
So like we want the curve to be a Google in terms of like.
Yeah, I feel like now it's kind of become a verb.
Yeah, right.
Let's Google it.
Wow, that's so, I had no idea. So Google is more than a Finian, by the way. Yeah. You just said Finian. I'm assuming that's not a real.
But yes, it's like a trillion, whatever. Yeah, it's the most, quite cool.
I like that.
Yeah, a Google. Anyway, the US government is trying to break up Google. So this is major news, and it's all because they've become way too dominant in search. So they've got 90% market share in search, and they're stifling competition. They're preventing smaller companies from being innovative. They're really dominating their position, and the US government's like, you know what, I'm not having it.
It feels like this is happening a lot. It feels like there's a lot of, whether it be Google or Amazon or all of these massive, massive companies, there's a real shift or focus on not letting them be so dominant. Do you think it will actually happen, or is it more of a, we're trying to look like we're helping the little guys, you know?
No, I think it's just become more common. Like there's definitely like the European Union's been issuing fines for anti-competitive behaviour. And it is because they're just getting too big. Like all of these companies they're $1 trillion companies, you know, like we've never ever had companies this size before that have been so dominant. But this is quite different in the fact that they're now going, we're going to break you up. Do you know what I mean? It's not just slapping you with a couple of $1 billion fine, which you can pay, which is probably 1% of your profit, you know, and then keep being big. It's like, no, we're going to break you up so that you are two separate companies, so you can't be as dominant.
What would it be split between?
So I think a really good example is back in 2000s, Microsoft went through this. They went through the court, and then it went to the high court, and then went to, you know, like they went through a lot of court proceedings. And it was to break up the software and the operating system of Microsoft because they were selling them as a package, and therefore other companies couldn't compete. But anyway, it didn't end up being broken up. Like Bill Gates left as CEO, and they had to make a whole lot of changes, but they didn't actually end up getting broken up. But they're saying it's kind of the biggest case that's happened since then, and that was in 2000. So
24 years ago.
Yeah. So I don't know what will come of Google, and this could take years. But I think the takeaway from this that I see is that if this does go ahead for Google, it's very concerning for Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, all of those other companies, because it just shows that there's a ceiling. There's a point in terms of the size you can get. Yeah.
And so if it didn't happen to Microsoft, what makes...
Well, back then in 2000, Microsoft was much, 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 much smaller. And so the fact that they were even talking about it then, they still had to make a lot of changes and split those two products and sell them separately so other companies could compete. But it's interesting. I was having a conversation with Danny yesterday about...
Who is our commercial director.
Yes, our commercial director. And about how the US government can step in. It's called the regulator, the competition regulator, can step in if two companies are going to merge. So say you had
Maybelline and L'Oreal.
Yeah, and they were each had like 40% market share in skincare. They're coming together, they're going to have 90%. They'd be like, no, that's not allowed because you're too big of a player in that sector or that industry.
Who sets the rules as
the regulator, the government?
But is there parameters?
Yep.
So then why would they even think about merging if they know they're not allowed?
Because you can kind of argue it. You can be like, oh no, it's not skincare. We're also in like apparel, and like you've got to take the whole market into consideration. So it's like if we merged with another company that was similar to the Curve and we end up becoming quite big, we could be like, oh no, we're not just financial empowerment. We're
selling plants too.
We're selling plants. We've got the whole, we're female empowerment, which is way more massive, and there's 10 other competitors. So you try and argue your case. Or it might be the case of, with us, oh, okay, well, the regulator might say, yeah, you can merge or you can acquire this company, but you have to get rid of your podcast. So you can stifle off a little bit.
Honestly dictate how the company is structured and how big it gets.
Yeah, and sometimes investors get excited when two companies join together because they're going to be bigger and better, and then the share price goes up of the one that's acquiring or being acquired, and then it gets stopped by the regulator and then the share price falls. So everyone's like, oh.
Gosh, that's really hard to know from an investing standpoint if it's a good thing or not then when companies join together or when they split apart.
Yeah.
Do you think with this particular example with Google, I mean, hearing you speak about the regulator, I mean, I'm kind of shocked that all of these massive tech companies have even been allowed to get as big as they are.
Yeah.
Given the fact that I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem totally wild to me to think that could actually happen to Google.
Yeah. But then on the flip side, I'm like, this is capitalism. You've got founders that have been hugely innovative and investing in their businesses, and they've grown to be massive. They've changed our worlds, and now you're penalizing them. I kind of feel like, I don't know, that would be the other side of the argument, which maybe a lot of people don't agree with. But yes, you're trying to encourage innovation with smaller companies, but you're also stifling it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see where it lands, but it's not good for a lot of the big tech companies.
Have we seen any of the massive tech companies' stock price fall since this announcement?
Google's has, yeah. So Google's has fallen over the last week when that news came out, about 5%.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah, for a big company like that. I think the others it's a bit far-fetched yet.
Yeah.
And this could take years to play out, but yeah.
Quite fascinating.
Those tech companies make up a large percentage of the S&P 500 as well. So if you're investing...
That's what I'm thinking. Is the whole economy going to go tits up if they all get split up?
Tits up. How does that phrase even
know.
work?
Oh, my God. Maybe it's because you're on your back. Tits up.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Oh, that's disgusting. I'm never saying that again. Sorry. Jesus. But, could it be dangerous? Because that's what I was immediately thinking was there's been such growth in the economy because of these massive tech companies.
Yeah.
If they don't have the opportunity to soar like they have been, does that mean that the stock market in general will look to, I don't know, stall a little bit?
100%.
Oh, not great.
Not great. Have you heard of Henry?
Yeah. As in I was about... Yes.
Not that boy you dated. No.
Look, let's move on from that terrible joke. But yeah.
Oh, you've dated a few Henrys.
No, I haven't. Oh, only two. Anyway, Henry HNRY is what we're referring to, right? As in the accountancy software.
That's how you spell Henry. No. HENRY.
I don't think it's actually spelled that way.
No, we're not talking about the accounting software. We're talking about high earner, not rich yet.
Oh, okay, definitely haven't heard of that.
Acronym.
Oh my God, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
Fun.
So there was a study that came out that said, and a lot of people would be like, probably have zero sympathy for these people, but it's when you're earning a high salary, but your expenses are so high that you're just not rich. You're not accumulating assets. You're not putting away money for retirement. Like we've heard of FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early. And yeah, there's...
Wait, hold on. We did do an episode on that. If anyone's just ears pricked up and they're like, what is that? It was Raising the Curve 111. So Raising the Curve 111. And it's FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early with Anna Christina. Why are you laughing?
No, it's just like 111 and it's a FIRE episode.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I thought you were laughing because I was kind of doing chopsticks with my fingers. Yeah, it's a really interesting, it's basically the idea that you've got to squirrel all this money away as early as you can so that you have as much time investing in the stock market for that money to grow so you can retire early is kind of the
Yes.
premise in a nutshell.
Yeah, so there's like another acronym that started, which is Henry, which is high earner, not rich yet. And it's all about the increase, like cost of living. And yes, you can increase your salary, but your expenses are still going up. We're in this inflationary environment.
I know a few Henrys.
Yeah. I bet you do, girl.
No, genuinely, I'm like,
No.
I can think of people I know who they don't feel good about it either.
Yeah.
They earn a lot, but they spend so much and are quite stressed about it because they know they're not putting it away.
And it's also not spending much on like discretionary things. It's like childcare, healthcare, schooling, mortgage. But it's the fact that everything's got so expensive and they feel like they're on this hamster wheel. And yes, you might feel like that and you're not a higher earner. You might be a Lenry on a lower.
Did you think about that when you were researching and you thought, I got a good one here?
I literally just thought of it then. Yeah, it was just like the study that had come out that in the US, people are on $200,000 a year and still feeling like they're on this hamster wheel and they're not progressing into like accumulating assets and saving their retirement.
Isn't it kind of, I don't know if this is going to bring solace to anyone, but from the amount of messages we got from Raising the Curve on financial burnout last week, which we were talking about at the start of the episode, the amount of people who could relate to that, I honestly think it's people who don't earn much, it's people who earn a medium amount, it's people who earn a lot.
Yeah.
And it's because we're always lifestyle creeping, like the Henrys of the world. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to pull back expenses and feel like you're getting ahead. I think it would be very rare for there to be a huge amount of people who are earning an okay amount, have their expenses low and are feeling like they're getting ahead. I think it's a pretty blanket feeling across the world right now. Doesn't matter how hard I work. And I think it's hard when you have dependents if you're in a family. As you say, there's childcare, there's mortgage repayments, all that kind of thing, because once you've made that decision to stretch yourself to a certain level, it's quite hard to pull yourself back.
Yeah. For me, the biggest takeaway from this is that it doesn't matter how much you earn. If you don't have a budget or you're not monitoring your spending, whether you're earning $1 million or 10,000, you're going to feel like you're on this hamster wheel and I've got to keep earning because I've got to sustain my lifestyle. Whereas if you're putting away a little bit and you've got your budget, you're monitoring what you're spending and you're putting away a little bit each month, each year, whatever it is, then you're not going to have this feeling of I can't stop on this hamster wheel because otherwise the juice is going to run out.
Just on that, we did a little internal product meeting with me, Emily, our podcast producer, and Danny, commercial director, because she's really amazing with her financial planning. And we sat down because for the world's biggest investing club, we know that there's a lot of people that aren't in a position to invest yet. So right now, the club is definitely more for people who are investing or have invested. But it was really interesting. We had this sort of internal session where we spoke about financial planning and what is needed and because that step is often missing. And unless you can get to a place where you at least have a financial plan, you're never, ever, ever going to have no financial stress because it's just this constant money coming in, money going out, and you do feel like you're never getting ahead. And I actually think the Henrys, you're right, there's probably a lot of Lenrys.
Lenrys, yeah.
But you don't need to be earning a lot to have a financial plan and to feel like you're working towards something.
And I think that's also a big misconception is that I don't have enough to put away or I don't have enough to invest. And this is a pretty broad statement, but I think a lot of people would be surprised how easy it is from a habit perspective just to put away $1 a week, and start very, very small.
I think for me, it's not so much the idea of you can invest with $1 because I personally find that really unmotivating. I don't know if some people find that motivating, but for me, what's the biggest unlock is looking at what I've got, figuring out what my priorities are, and making sure I prioritize the money that can go into investment because there are ways of pulling back on your lifestyle or what you're spending. It's just if you have no awareness or visibility as to where it's going, I think that's a real problem. I think we paused this conversation, Vic, only because we are working from a product perspective of being able to help everyone with their financial planning. Yeah. But it would be cool to do some kind of action because I think people listening will be thinking, I'm a Lenry or a Henry.
Yeah.
What's like one small thing that we could all do this week that's motivating, even though it's small and maybe isn't going to make a huge difference in the long run? What's something that...
Yeah, I think it's opening your banking app or your desktop, wherever you look at your transactions, and just sit there and take a moment and look at what you've spent for the past week and just to have that consciousness of where your money's going.
Yeah, because I think that's it. A lot of us we feel like we're so far away from a financial plan.
It's so easy to tap and tap and tap and tap and not be conscious of like that's money going out or that I'm spending actual cash. So
it's a good first step, I think.
Yeah.
Just to see what you've spent.
Yeah.
Because also it's sometimes
even me,
quite shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone should experience first class at least once in their lives, and Annie shouldn't miss out just because she can't afford it. Help me, I'm poor.
Oh, gosh.
What?
So I've had a bit of a financial faux pas. So it's been on my list for so long. I want to say like 6 months to sort out pet insurance for my darling Miso.
Oh, no.
And anyway, I came home from work the other night. It had the longest day and I was like, I'm so excited to just chill out and relax. And then my flatmate's like, Vic, I think Miso's got a scratch or a bite on her neck and it got infected. And anyway, I was like, can I leave it till tomorrow? And then I was like, no. Anyway, called an emergency vet. The vet was like, look, she's been bitten or something on her neck. We're going to have to put her to sleep so that we can.
She knows what she's being talked about. She's trying to get up on the couch. Come on, Miso, up you get.
Whereas like she's like, we're going to have to put her to sleep because she's not going to let me near it. So put her to sleep. Anyway, the cost of the call out for the vet,
Wait, did you have to get them to come to your house?
Yeah.
And bring tools like a
bring
traveling
whole,
makeup artist?
Honestly, it was like a whole backpack
Whoa.
of, yeah. And she was like, look, it's going to be £700. So, yeah, I had to pull money from other places that or things I'd been saving for.
Miso.
But, yeah, there was definitely you've only got yourself to blame because it's been on your to-do list to get pet insurance and it could have probably cost you 50 quid.
Damn, that's annoying.
So, anyway.
Good reminder. Insurance
good reminder.
is so...
If it's not your dog, it could have been me, you know. It could have been some health issue for myself.
Oh, we do have an insurance episode, which could be worth listening to, actually. So Raising the Curve 63, A Guide to Adulting, which is so true. Getting insurance is such an adult move, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you need motivation or you want to understand insurance and the different types you can get, that's a really good episode.
But, yeah, and also...
I'm sorry.
What I could have spent that £700 on versus 50. But it's a expensive lesson. Mm-hmm. But you're worth every dollar, Miso.
Do you know, when you text me that, I thought, yeah, I'm not ready financially for a dog.
Yeah.
There's no way I could deal with a £700 random bill. That would stress me out so much.
No, but also like you'd pay anything for your child. You know, like I would borrow money from friends or I would call my parents. Or,
do you know, this is going to sound so weird, but I'd be quite proud one day if you were to message me and be like, I really need some help financially. Can you give me some money? And I was like, yep, no worries.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be a bit concerned as to what's going on in your life.
I think it would create more questions than answers, yeah.
Quick note for anyone who hasn't already entered our Thermomix giveaway.
Woohoo!
Also, Thermomix is just, they're
like game changing.
Yeah, and honestly, no one has paid me to say that. They are unreal. To find out all the prize details and what you need to know, we'll link that in the podcast show notes, but yeah.
Enter. It'll be game changing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to The Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the money, biz and stock market news. And if you like what you heard, we would love a review. Thank you.
Yes, we would love a review. But if you did hate it, please, don't leave one if you hate it. No, but in all seriousness, could you please leave a review? Because it really helps other people find our cute little podcast.
And we hope you have a good week and see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet? Yeah. See you next Tuesday. Lol. See you next Tuesday. I mean Monday.
No, actually, though, new episodes out every Tuesday.